Hi good people, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and today we're going to be setting up a sound-based AI perception system. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so I have a basic scene set up here. We got our enemy drone. Currently it's not moving or doing anything, and it doesn't have any AI capabilities. And then we have these little air sirens kind of around the map that are randomly making noise from one another. So what we'll do is we will code the logic to get this drone to basically sense or hear the noise and then move to the location of the noise. Alright, but let's go ahead and go into our blueprints. Starting off, we will want to move into our enemy controller. So let's double click there. And I'm going to do open the full blueprint. We can go to the viewport here. So in the components tree, we'll want to add in our AI system. So we'll just hit add and then search for AI perception. With that added, there is a sense config in the details panel. You just hit the plus sign and you can add as many senses as you want. For this example or this demo, we're just going to be doing one, and we're going to be setting it to be the hearing configuration. We'll have to expand that out because I am going to increase the hearing range. I'm going to go to 4,000 units just because my spacing on some of my items is a little bit further away. The detection by affiliation, I'm just going to check friendlies, neutrals, and enemies so we get everything. Start enabled's fine, and I will leave the max age to be infinite, which is, I guess, 0 in this case. So we can compile and save. Now that we have the controller set up, remember the pawn is the physical manifestation of the entity, whether it's a player or an AI, and the controller is the soul. And you can have player controllers or you can have AI controllers. So we have the AI controller, so we need to assign it to our pawn. In this case, I have a drone blueprint called BP enemy. We'll double click to open that up. And if I search in the details panel for pawn, you'll see I have an AI controller class that I can set to be the BP underscore enemy controller, which is the blueprint we were just in. Now, if I compile and save that, I can actually tab, and you'll notice I have an actual perception system going on. So you can see the yellow cone represents my hearing radius, and then you can see my listening and my senses kind of kicking off there. So we gave the drone the ability to hear. Now we need to actually configure these air raid sirens to actually produce a noise or a sound. So real quick, let's actually go into the blueprint for our actual megaphone. So we'll double click there. And currently it's just a simple, there's only one custom event in here, and it basically just plays this Niagara effect that I created. So there's nothing else going on, so we're basically going to tie off of this. So when this is triggered, we'll play the Niagara effect, and then I want to create a sound. So we can do a report noise event, and then I need to designate a location, and then I need to designate an instigator, and then I need to set my max range. If you don't designate an instigator, your AI system will not know where to move to, so that is important. So what I can do is I will drag out my default scene root, basically the root object, and then I can say get world location, and then I can pass that into the noise location. And then for the instigator, I can just right click and do get a reference to self, and then just plug that in the instigator. And then for the max range, I'm going to do 4,000 units, and I'll leave the loudness set to a value of 1. This is basically like a multiplier, so it kind of will increase your range if you just want to do it quickly. So we can compile and save. And now this will actually generate a noise, but there is one other step we'll need to do here. In the components tree, we will need to add in the AI perception stimuli source. And this basically will register with your AI perception system that this is something that generates noise for the system to pick up. So in the AI perception, we can just add an element The element we're going to do is the AI sense hearing. And then that's pretty much it, actually. We can just compile and save, and that one's pretty much set up. If we go back into the map and we play, nothing's really going to happen. So I think after 10 seconds, this thing will kick off and it'll start making noise in one of the, it picks one at random too, so we'll see which one. But we shouldn't move. Yeah, you can see that one in the back's making noise. But we're not moving, and that's because we've given the drone the ability to hear. We've given objects in the world the ability to make a sound. But you still need to drive logic somehow. So we're still going to have to basically create like a behavior tree or a state machine to make use of this navigation mesh in the world, so the drone knows how to actually move around. So let's do that now. So we can just right click under artificial intelligence. We'll select Blackboard, call it BB_drone, and we can right click, select AI again, and we'll do behavior tree, call it BT_drone. And then if I double click to open that up, we got our root component node here, so we'll pull into a selector that we'll call the trunk. And we'll make this real basic. We're just going to do 2 sequence nodes, so we'll pull off in sequence. This one we can maybe call I heard a noise, and then this one we'll call loiter. So we'll just have basic tree with 2 nodes. For I heard a noise, we'll pull off and do a simple move to. And then we have to set up the keys on where to move, and in the loiter, we will simply call a wait, and then we can just wait like 5 seconds, that's fine. If we select Blackboard in the top right corner, we can set up our keys. I think we'll be good with just 2 keys. We'll do first one, it will be the object, and we'll call this our interests. And then the second key will be a Boolean that we can call maybe sound. And then for the interests, I'm actually going to expand out the key type and change it from object. I'm going to set it to actor, so it can be any actor item. And then going back into the behavior tree, we can right click on I heard a noise, and then we can basically add a decorator called Blackboard. We select that little blue decorator that it adds, and then we can change the key to be that sound Boolean value that we just created at the bottom here. And then move this over here, and we can also rename this to maybe just call it sound ? And we want to set the observer aborts. I'm actually going to set it to both lower and higher priorities. So basically it'll reevaluate the tree anytime this value changes, which is usually a good thing to do. That way you don't get stuck waiting for a trunk to actually, or a branch to actually finish its logical flow before it actually reevaluates. You can just kick it off immediately. But yeah, so we will save that. Now, creating the behavior tree still doesn't actually start it, so nothing's going to happen with that either. What we have to do now is we'll want to go into our enemy controller, and under the event graph, maybe under the event begin play, we can just simply say run behavior tree, and then we can tell it to run the drone behavior tree here. And now that we have that, we can actually set up, well, let's actually see if this is kind of working at all. So let's grab this here. And I will go back here and we'll play this. We'll enter debug mode with single quotes or quotations. And then we can do 4, 5 to get some of those going. And you can see the hearing is actually kicking off. You see it is triggering there, but there's nothing moving. If I do Shift F1, I can move our behavior tree, and we can see we are currently stuck in loiter mode. And that's because the sound element that we haven't set that Boolean value, so it's kicking us off basically. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that going here. What we'll do is we'll go in the enemy controller, and then we can select our AI perception component, and then you can right click, add a custom event. Then under the event, we have all these different events for the perception system. The one we can use for this is just the add-on target perception updated, because it has a simple actor and stimulus that you can right click and split, which will give you access to all sorts of things. So I think what we'll do is we can right click and search for Blackboard, and then we can do get Blackboard, so we have the value. And then if you pull off that, you can do set value as, and we'll want to do the object one, which is our interest, our point of interest, like where do we want to go. And we pull off the key and say make literal name, and we want to match the name we set in the actual Blackboard. So in this case, it was called interest with a capital I. So I can just right click, copy that, and then paste that over here. Now for the object, we can just simply take the actor field here, pass it in, and it'll automatically do the logic for us, so we don't even have to worry about it. Then the next one we'll want to do is I will duplicate the Blackboard, and then we can do set value as Boolean or bool. And then we're going to set this Boolean value to true. We'll pull off this and do another make literal name. And then this one is going to be called sound with a question mark. So we'll copy that here. Paste it over here. Now this should give us a way to actually enter in that branch for our behavior tree, just with this minimal code here. So we can go ahead and compile and save. And then let's go ahead and play this real quick and see what happens. I think it takes 10 seconds is what I set the timer on for it to kick off. There we go. So we are in, let me get rid of this, and we'll get rid of 4.5 and do the behavior system. So we are in I heard a noise. So we're getting in the branch, but we're not actually moving, and I think I know why. So if we go in the behavior tree, so we were definitely in I heard a noise, but it wasn't moving, and that's because if we select move to, the Blackboard key that it's moving towards is itself. So we would want to change that to the interest key, which is this one right here, which is what we're populating right here. So we'll compile and try that again. So we are currently in loiter. Still in loiter. We did make a noise, but it didn't trigger. That might have been maybe because it was outside of its range. Oh, there we go. So it triggered on this one. And it is actually moving towards it, and we have a lifetime age, which we set to infinite. So our drone is actually starting to move around. We can even press 0, and we can see the navigation mesh that actually makes this possible for the AI drone to actually calculate trajectories and figure out where to go as it traverses the map. So that's pretty cool, but it's very limited, and we still need to do some fixes for it. For one, we should probably be clearing. We have no way to clear it basically gets stuck in this branch, because once we set this Blackboard key sound to true, we never set it back to false. So what we can do is we have a list of tasks, like predefined tasks here, but we want one that's going to clear a Blackboard key, which we don't really have. So what we can do is we'll just do a new task, which would be our custom task. We'll call it BTT underscore maybe clear key, something like that. And then what we can do is under the function override, we can add the receive execute AI. The reason, what we want to do is when you call this, when the AI takes over for it, you can do a simple task to your pawn, and then you can pass the controlled pawn into the object field. The reason this is good is because it gives you a failed and a success outlet. So we can do a finish execute, press Control D to duplicate that, and you have a success and a failure. For any custom task, you'll want to set some sort of positive and negative condition, because if you don't, the behavior tree will basically get stuck in this task and it will never be able to leave it. So it's important that you set some way for it to fail and some way for it to succeed. So, but this basically just gets the task working. We need to do something in the task. So what we can do is we can pull off and do a set blackboard value, and this one was the Boolean, so we'll do the bool, and we're going to set it to false, but you'll notice the key is different, so I can't make literal like I did before. What we have to do is we can promote that to a variable, and we can just call this our key reference, or whatever name you want to make it, it doesn't matter. The important part is that you make it instance editable by clicking this eyeball, or you check this box for instance editable, either way. When you do that and you save it, you can go back to your behavior tree, and then when you select on your custom behavior tree task that you made, you see that key reference here, and then we can populate whatever key we want to overwrite. So this one we want to set is the sound. So now we're going to clear the sound, and then we'll loiter for 5 seconds before we actually move into the next one, at least for that logic there. And then real quick, we should pull up the third person character to see how this logic is actually working. So what I'm doing is off the player, off the event begin play, I am getting all actors of class called megaphone, which is that blueprint I made of these little yellow things here basically. And I am storing them into an array. And then after I store them in an array, I basically call the set timer by function name. And then the function I'm calling is demo, and I'm telling it to run every 10 seconds, and then I'm looping it. So every 10 seconds, it's going to call that function. If we go into the function, which I made over here by clicking this little plus sign, you can see it's very simple. I'm just taking the array, I'm getting a random value from that array, and then I'm calling a custom event called sound-off, which is the one I pointed out inside this blueprint. That all it does is it plays that Niagara effect, and then we coded the sound that it makes for the perception system. So there's nothing too crazy with that, so let's just go back and give this a quick play. We'll do 4.5 tab, and what I'll do is I'll press Shift F1, and I'm going to pull this over so we can actually maybe see what's going on. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so currently we are, so at the 30-second mark, we should get something happening here. There we go. And you see it's in the move to, or I heard a noise function. It'll clear the key so it can actually move into the loiter tree, or the loiter branch, I should say. Because remember, the way the behavior trees work is they execute top down and then left to right. So if you don't create any sort of logic here, it'll always execute, at least on a sequence, it'll always execute the thing on the left. So we need some way to basically kick it out so it doesn't get stuck in one sort of section. And I think this works pretty good. But all right, everyone, we'll cut it here. I hope you found some informative value in this topic that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.